G'day guys, Clint here, and I'm recording episode number 40 of The Full Landscape with Sam Cottell from SA Trade Licensing. In this episode, we will cover trade licensing, how the difference between contractors licensing and supervisors is sometimes confused, the misconceptions and mistakes people make when they're applying for licensing, as well as how to move from one state to the other when it comes to licensing. If you're enjoying this content, please give it a like, subscribe, share it with your friends. And if you want to reach out to Sam about any licensing assistance, you can get him on his website, which we'll link up in the comments below. Thank you. So, to get started, if you can, I guess, introduce yourself to the audience and give us a bit of a brief around as far back as is relevant, I guess, to what you've done up until the point that you've started SA Trade Licensing.
Okay, no worries. So SA Trade Licensing, so I established that about 6 years ago. And prior to that, I was working for government, so consumer business services, around different areas of it. I initially started in the licensing department for solar builders and plumbing, gas, electrical licensing component. But then, as government does, they kind of move you around, try different areas, which was, at the time, was perfect for me because I'm just cutting my teeth into it. Got a gig in fair trading. And that opened up my eyes very quickly for the different types of issues that are around, licensing, consumer law, all the rest of it as well. And obviously dealing with people, negotiating between customers and tradies. And all the rest
So
of
what, almost doing like conflict resolution?
Yeah, pretty much conciliation. Yep. Yeah, all the rest of it. Yep, spot on. And that was, you get thrown in the deep end, which was good. It was a good way to learn.
Well, I guess there's no gentle, this customer's an easy one, you can have this one first.
Spot on.
Yeah.
And what they'll do is they'll put you on the phones for a 4-hour stint. Yep. And it's, you because you obviously have no idea what's coming through.
Yeah.
You learn very quickly on how to talk to people.
That's good though. I think learning at that level, then I think it would almost be good for anyone in that department to start there.
Spot on. Yeah. Yep, spot on. And the good thing is too, is because then you get to the point where you can have that ability eventually to be able to talk to all different types of people in industry or consumers, all the rest of it as well. And you can really apply that after wherever you move to after as well, especially trying to conciliate, negotiate as well. So that worked out very well. And then went back to licensing in consumer affairs and formerly the old OCPA. And then did a stint there for about 5 years. So it was about six years in total in CBS. And then prior to that, I was just bumping around the different types of government departments, tax and health and all the rest of it, just as admin, and doing uni as well. Finished off a management degree before that too, and just getting practical on-site experience for type of building work while I was doing that. So then it really, 2015, it really came to a head where I'd done everything I needed to do for government, so road shows, management level kind of work, kind of technical licensing side of things, and I thought there's a big gap between tradies and guys that aren't qualified, so just guys with on-site experience, applying for a license, but then having no idea what to do and getting really conflicted advice.
It's daunting.
It is.
Yeah.
And the thing is too, when I say conflicted advice, it's not necessarily, I'm not going to pick on one person. It's everyone's got different views on how they would approach licensing and based on their experiences. But it's case by case.
Well, I don't even know that the conflicting advice would be coming from the government either. I think that a lot of the time it's, my mate did that and this is what happened. Or you've got the other side of the coin where people with licenses who are competing with people who might need help are reluctant to help them because they're like, well, I had to go through the hard yards to get this, so you can too.
Spot on.
Which is not what the government wants.
Exactly. And the other catch too with government is that we have to, we as I say we when I was working there, we had to remain impartial too. So when guys would call up or come in face to face and ask for advice, what can I do? This is my business, blah, blah, blah. We'd say, here's an information sheet. Here's what it is.
Because that's black and white.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we don't know what their business structure, how they're doing their business, as obviously running for the types of conditions and all the rest that they want to apply for. And if we stick our neck out and say that this is what you should go for, and it doesn't work, then there's obviously an issue there. So we had to be very impartial, which was tricky for the guys because as the tradies, because they needed that assistance. So
you're humans as well, so it's hard to be. It's interesting, like if you have that situation happen with a bank or an insurance company, that person's protected by a layer of other people, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, mate, you got declined by who? Oh, the department. I want to talk to them. Can't talk to them. It's not me, it's them." Whereas you're at the cold face in that role, and you kind of don't have that layering.
Spot on.
Obviously, because it's government, but
exactly. So that was the point. So kind of it reached a point, finished uni at the same time because I was doing that part time while I was in government as well. Because I obviously didn't finish it off when I was younger, so I realised the importance of it later.
Younger. This bloke looks like he's 30.
Yeah. Almost 40.
That's that coastal living.
I clean myself up for today. So,
when I got a facial.
That's it. So we just hit a point there, and I knew there wasn't anyone else doing what I was doing.
Well, is there now even with you? Because I look at that. You're I guess into this blue ocean, and I'm going like. A, you're probably really busy. B, this is probably going to make you even busier. And then there's no competition, which is kind of not disappointing because it's good for you, but I think that it's a great business and there needs to be more access to that information. That's why I wanted to do this podcast, just even if it's not necessarily to drive work towards you, but at least to go, hey, this is Sam. He's approachable. He's normal. He's a normal human. He'll help you. Or these are the 6 or 10 questions that are kind of commonly asked by the people I'm dealing with, and they're like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting. I thought it would be harder than that. I thought it would be different to that." So,
and spot on. Yeah, exactly. And the trick is too is that if you want to do this type of job, as in what I'm doing for licensing side of things, I would confidently say that you can't do it unless you've worked in licensing. You just can't, because the thing is the amount of info sheets and everything online.
There's no class you can go to at night to learn how to do this.
There's nothing. So in theory, the competition is quite low for me.
Well, the competition will be whoever you hire and train that leaves and starts a competing business.
Spot on. Yeah. So
that'll be what happens next.
It's a tricky one. I know, and I'm resisting. So
I think I get that. I mean, I had someone say to me a while back, like, you will be the training ground for the future of irrigation, and I was like, I don't want to be that. I want them to stay. But the reality is, if you have ambitions to grow, it's going to happen.
Spot on. So started that one, and the other catch, of course, because no one had done it here in South Australia anyway. I know there's other places Interstate. Not sure if they'd worked in licensing before or not. I'm not too sure. But for South Australia, I really had no idea how to price accordingly as well, and processes and all the rest of it. I knew that once an application got into licensing, I knew exactly what I needed to do there. But it was everything up until that point.
And knowing what your time's worth per hour, which is something that I think the government encouraged you to do for your builder's license, to go to the accounting course. But now you're in the other side where you're running a business and you're like, well, how much should I be charging per hour? How long is it going to take? So were you just finding your feet in the early years?
Early, at least two years, first 2 years. Difficult's the wrong word to say. It's more just in the sense of building trust, because people knew about me just purely because of licensing. Oh, there's that Sam guy from licensing. I've dealt with him before, right? But then now I'm out in corporate, they'll go, well, what angle has he got? And so to try and build that brand and say, look, I'm not here to try and just take money for no reason. I'm actually trying to obviously add value, blah, blah, blah. That took a couple of years, definitely. And it wasn't profitable for those first few years. But then typical Adelaide, as soon as you start doing some good work for people, referral based, and it's basically now, it's been 6 years, I would say 70 to 75% of my business is referral, and the rest is Google. So it's great, it's a good feeling.
And Google being that you're running paid search, or just the fact that the website's up and it's the only one of its kind?
All organic. So I actually learned, I was very lucky, a good friend of mine's actually a videographer, but he's also very good with the computers and SEO and all the rest of it. He actually taught me that. So from the start, basic level, but it was enough to get to the point. So now ranking just below CBS. So but look, took a couple of years to get to that point. So it's all organic, which I'm very lucky with, because obviously saving those advertising costs.
Well, the age of the website, the name's appropriate. I understand a dirtier, raw amount of SEO as well, and the name's perfect for it because it's exactly what people are looking for. So you've got the right domain without it being too tacky, as in, because you can go really tacky with domains and then Google will see past it. And now the domain's obviously at least 6 years old, so you've got age trust. So even if a competitor comes into play now, they're going to have to pay for SEO to try and jump you.
Spot on.
And then you can just engage an SEO company. I've got a good one if you get stuck.
Thank you.
And then you just climb back up straight away because you've got that history.
Yep.
So, right, I looked at your website beforehand and I've got an idea of who you work with, but can you go into detail about the kind of trades or businesses that you're working with in South Australia? Like, I'm asking from a landscaping standpoint, but I'm guessing it's beyond that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is, yeah.
And landscaping might be a small percentage of it.
Look, it's funny enough, it actually isn't. It's actually quite a big part of it. There's only really three key areas that are consistent, I find. Landscaping, which I would define loosely as your paving, retaining walls, fencing.
External work.
Basic external, thank you. Yeah, external, couples, floors, verandas, all the rest of it. A lot of those guys, a lot of demand there, and everyone's case by case based on experience. Then the other key one is your new build residential and renovations group. And then you got your tier 1, 2, and 3 civil
that are trying to go to the next level. So they've already got a license to build a house or a 2-story building or whatever, and now they're trying to increase their...
Yeah, actually, surprisingly, most of them top out here in Adelaide or South Australia, especially country. They'll top out around 2-story, maybe 3 a little bit, but everyone's really gone from, say, renovations up to new build 1, like residential 1, resi 2. They won't want to go much higher than that. No, just based on demand.
But Civil's
a big one for me too, because once you get into the civil game and they one big tier 1, 2, whatever knows you, then they'll refer you on to other ones as well.
Yeah, okay. So that referral basis is solid.
Yeah, that it is. Yeah, and that took years. That took years of trust to get there.
So electricians and plumbers seem to be across the stuff they do. Their apprenticeship, that pathway is kind of pretty cleanly laid out for them.
It's effectively set.
Yeah, it is. You finish that, you get your license.
Spot on. Yeah, and the government departments actually talk to each other for that one too. So once they finish their apprenticeships, they'll like their paperwork will effectively be sent to licensing, and then it's up to the guy to apply. But the reality is, for me, there's nothing there because it's such.
There's no support required. Nah. Yeah, because I guess, and I'm probably no more plumber than electrical, but there's obviously industry bodies that they're members of, master plumbers, that have got a lot more water has gone under their bridge than the master landscapers, for example, because it's such a new body. So they've already been through this 200 times, 300 times in the last 2 years. They can just go, well, we've learned from experience. This is what happens. So
spot on. There was relationships with them at the start when I was originally starting off, because I just knew them through government as well. But the reality was that there was no real business for me, and they knew that. And the angle for me too, I try to be, and I tell this to most guys on the phone, I try to be brutally honest to the point that I say, look, if you don't need me, you don't need me.
Don't use me.
No, because it's the thing, and the reality is too, is if you're honest with these guys, the referral base will come after that anyway.
That's all business.
So.
And I've seen it and do it all the time. Even if you do need me, but I'm too busy to help you, I'll point you in the direction of someone that can help you. And next time they need help, they'll call you. They won't call the other person. Because it's just, it's that basic trust. So what those guys, the landscapers, the builders, talk to me about what they would get you to do. So what, like, they ring you up and they're like, I need a license. I have no idea where to start. What do you do? How do you get involved?
I think the first two main questions I'll ask them. What's your business structure?
Because is it a sole trader partnership company?
Yep, spot on. Because that directly affects how your application is going to go. And then they'll either have no idea, which is fine, and then I won't give them that advice. So I'll say, look, here's what the most common approach is. That's, case by case. Speak to your accountant and the rest of it. I'll tell them the pros and cons for that one. But the most important one is the conditions to apply for. That's the biggest one by far. And that's the one I try to really nip in the bud at the start. But the reality is that I'm not physically seeing their work, so I can only go based on what they tell me. So we have to be really careful on, obviously, that type of advice. But I will spend a fair bit of time on the conditions.
So when you say conditions, if for example, I'm a landscaper, all I want to be able to do is pave people's houses, build retaining walls to a metre, pool coping, plants, no pergolas, no pools, all that kind of stuff. When you say conditions, what does that refer to? Like the actual things that you want included on the back of your license? That's the conditions?
Spot on.
So those things I've just described. So rainwater tanks would be its own thing, stormwater up to whatever.
90,
So you need to really extract that information.
You do.
Because if you miss one, it's a pain.
It's a pain. It's a pain for them because it's more money for them. Because the problem is that if we miss one and then we apply and they get the license, which is great for them, but then they're going to pay associated upgrade fees as well, right? Sit the interview again, it's time and money. So we try and get that information out of them at the start. The one thing I would like to mention today for you as well, because it's actually just started the 1st of January this year as well, never been done before, is that the position for licensing, which I'm telling people on the phone as well now, is that you should not, I shouldn't say cannot, but you should not apply, let's say for retaining walls. if you're applying for retaining walls, which is unrestricted
Yep.
versus under a metre or up to a metre, if you can't put in writing that you've done a minimum of 4 of those separate jobs before,
Yep.
Licensing are hesitant. I won't
Yep.
say they won't, but they're hesitant to issue a technical interview
Yep.
based on that condition.
Yep.
So before that, it was more, if your intention is you got maybe 1 or 2 or whatever, chuck it on there
Yep.
and see how you go.
So that takes me to a really weird point. How do you build 4 retaining walls that high without a license? As an example,
working for someone.
Okay.
Yeah.
As an employee or a contractor?
Employee.
Okay.
Employee.
So, and if you were an employee of that company,
Yes.
that company would have its own license?
Yes.
Under a proprietary limited structure?
Or sole trader.
Or a sole trader?
Yeah, whatever. Yep.
So a company has a license, and that's a builder's license?
Yes.
And then the person has a supervisor's license?
Spot on.
Ideally?
Yeah, ideally.
Or they need one?
You talk about the person wanting to.
Whoever's on the site building
Yep.
the wall has to have the supervisor's
Yeah,
license.
yeah.
And then they would say, I'm going out on my own. I want to upgrade from a supervisor's license to a builder's license. So to get the supervisor's license for that size wall, you'd have to work under a supervisor and then apply for a supervisor's license, and then you work your way up.
Legally, technically, yes.
And look, that's what I'm trying to work out,
for
because,
sure.
you know, for some, it's like that whole when you're trying to get a job, you need experience, but you need the job to get experience. In a normal world, like if you wanted to go work in a sales role where you don't need a license. So I look at this and go, well, how are these guys supposed to get enough experience doing that without being hacky or literally, like I had a builder's license for a period in 2009. I was licensed to do walls up to a metre, and I don't think I'd ever built one, but we had our own business. I left a sales role, started a construction business. Construction business is being very liberal with words. We did some basic irrigation and lawn, and then I'd had no experience, so I had to go do it myself. So really, you can't just start a business and do that. You kind of have to go through that, or it's preferred. It's going to be looked upon more favourably if you've gone through that progression.
Spot on.
Yep.
And that's the thing. All experience is counted.
Yep.
Regardless of how you got it.
Even if you dobbed yourself in for building a wall unlicensed.
And that's the thing. And that's the position of licensing, where they'll before the 1st of Jan this year, it was more liberal.
Yep.
Now it's not, and I mean rightfully so too. Right?
And is that to pull it in line with other states, or is SA? So SA's kind of pulled itself up to like if you were in Victoria, New South Wales, that was already the case.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And there was certificates involved as well too, right? I wouldn't know the extent of them, but there was a qualification pathway and also experience as well as part of it.
So you'd go to TAFE and go to Cert 3, Cert 4 in whatever.
Yeah.
Whether it's construction management or whatever, or plumbing or whatever, and then that's part of the application. Okay,
Spot on.
Cool.
And I think the other thing too is that this new kind of rule that's come in, which isn't really advertised, but you'll find out as part of the application
Which
process.
you kind of want to know beforehand. Hence why you engage.
Exactly.
So trade licensing.
Spot on.
Yep. Ad right there.
That's it. But the other thing is too, is because the pathway here before that was, it was perceived that it was a little bit easier. I mean, there was still the risk of you failing in the interview.
Well, I did.
Right?
I failed I got licensed for retaining walls up to a metre, but not paving.
Yeah.
But I had no idea what I was talking about. I shouldn't have got the license.
Yeah.
My whole life's been me trying to convince people I know what I'm doing in the moment, and Okbar wasn't the place to be pulling that shit. So, so the landscaper, you kind of, or whoever it is, you try and extract those conditions out of them verbally, and try and get as much as possible, but they really need to have evidence that they've done stormwater, they've done this, they've done that, they've done that, they've done that, for it to be looked upon favourably.
Spot on.
Now.
And spot on. And evidence is a pretty loose term as well. So the guys have always put in the application references and photos.
Yep.
The position of licensing, and I put this on the website.
I saw about the photos on the website before.
Thank you. And I always try and tell people, photos, we get people taking photos of other people's work all the time.
Yep.
Can't trust it unless you're doing a selfie in it, which is, I've seen it plenty of times, all right? So
what video would be more if there was video of you actually doing the work, but they're not going to watch it.
Yeah, that's the thing too. And it's not that they don't want to, the problem is time, and uploading as well. It's actually not allowed on there too as part of the application process, so it's a bit tricky. So photos, don't do photos.
Yep.
References, nobody writes a bad reference.
Yep,
so
I know that.
why would we trust it?
Yep.
So yeah. So the angle is, and this is as part of my service, I've got a template, of course,
Yep.
that will get you to list all the different types of jobs,
Yep.
and kind of a kind of structure of how to set that out
Yep.
as well. So the key thing for us is consistency of work and multiple jobs.
Yep.
So, and doesn't matter, we can go back about, say, 7 years,
Okay.
maybe like 10 if you're pushing it, as long
Yep.
as it's consistent work. But we just want to see consistency work over the last 7 years.
Because that's really hard if you can't produce written references. Because that's how I got mine. That we needed 3 references. This is 10 years ago for work people that we'd done work for. But yeah, without producing evidence in writing of either of those, it's the only thing I could see happening is that someone actually comes out and evaluates you building something.
Yeah, and cost.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I think back in the day, early 90s, mid-90s, I think they did do that.
Yeah.
But not anymore, obviously.
Yeah, like how when my parents got their driver's license by just driving around the block
Yeah, I know.
in a cop car. So I guess I've got a question here about talk about the common mistakes or misconceptions people have around licensing. I think you've probably touched on some of it there around mistakes being that. Is there anything you can expand on around the common mistakes or misconceptions that people have around licensing in South Australia?
I think it's one of the big ones is understanding the difference between being a contractor and a supervisor.
That's one of the questions I've got further down. So you spend a couple of minutes on that for me.
Yeah. So best way to view it, and then this pulls in line with subcontractor, which is another issue that kind of pops up as well, a misconception as well.
Yep.
So best way to think about it is a supervisor's license is effectively, there's no legal definition of this, but this is how I word it. A supervisor's license is effectively a worker's license.
Yep.
That's all it is.
So you're licensed to work for a person that has the license above that.
That's it.
Yep.
That's all it is. So it's basically you're sitting that interview in order to get a worker's license
Yep.
to then physically do the work and sign off on the
Yep.
work. That's all it is.
Yep.
And then when you talk about a contractor's license, which technically is a completely separate license,
Yep.
but it's under the same number.
Yep.
It's a separate license altogether. In order to satisfy that, you must do your 2 business units.
Yep.
Police
Which
clearance.
is the accounting and legal.
Spot on.
Police clearance and then go through the interview process.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. So, and that is where it kind of gets it gets confused a little bit there. So you got your contractors, 2 business units, police clearance. You can actually apply right now if you do your 2 business units and police clearance.
Yep.
But the problem is that government or CBS will not issue you a contractor's license unless you have an appropriately nominated supervisor.
Okay, so right now I own a business, proprietary limited company. The company can get a contractor's license,
Yes.
but I have to have a supervisor under
on.
the company. If that supervisor leaves, I'm effectively trading outside of the law.
Yep.
If I've just got other people doing the work. If I'm the sole director of the company, do I need a contractor's license, or the company has the contractor's license? And is there a difference?
Sure is, yeah. So best way to view it, just from a practical point,
Yep.
it's all got to do with the ABN.
Yep.
So as soon as that ABN is a company, and
Yep.
that's not you personally, then the company itself will hold the license.
Yep.
You personally obviously run the operational director point of view,
Yep.
but it's not your license to have.
So if I sell the company, the license stays with the company.
Spot on.
Yep.
That's it. So and so what a lot of guys will do is they'll set up. A perfect example would be they'll start as a sole trader first.
Yep.
And then get that license, obviously, sole trader as a contractor. Then accountant 6 months later will say, "Oh, look, your revenue's starting to creep in, blah blah blah." Set up as a company.
Yep.
The misconception is, "Oh, well, look, I've got my sole trader's license. I'll just change it over to a
Yep.
company." The reality is, you can't transfer licenses,
Yep.
right? So you technically need to reapply again.
Well, you can't transfer a sole trader license, but you can transfer to a company, but a company can sell their company and it keeps the license.
Yes.
Or because it's not transferring, it's staying with the company.
The company, yeah, exactly. So it's effective as soon as you change ABNs.
Yep.
Best way I try to explain to everyone. As soon as you change ABNs, it's a new application, new license.
So if you've got a supervisor's license and you leave to go out on your own, you can't perform that work.
No.
You have to be under a contractor's license.
Spot on.
So then you can try to upgrade to your contractor's license using evidentiary support, or go through that process and say, all right, I've got my supervisor's license, I've done 4 years of this, I've built walls above this size, I've done at least 7 of them, I've done it here. Here's my application for my contractor's license. If you get that, then you can go out.
Not even that. No, much easier. So because you've already got your supervisor's ticket, you've done all your evidentiary requirements for on-site.
Yep.
So you've got that license.
It's the course.
Yeah, that's all it is. So it's literally just a course in the police clearance, and that's all it is. It's guaranteed.
And those, like I did that course in 2009. I'd say my license has lapsed and it really doesn't bother me. If I wanted to go for that contractor's license again, does that 10-year-old course count still?
Well, good question. Years ago, it didn't. No, and you'd have to show evidence.
Have done it pretty recently.
Yeah, spot on. These days now, because there's evidence that there was a previous company license and you were the sole director.
Yep, it was a partnership license, I reckon. So
it was partnership. Gotcha. Yeah.
So that you reapply.
Yeah, reapply. But look, as long as you can show evidence of those completed business units, it's still relevant. Yeah, so that's fine.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. Like we knocked out, and this is not advice, and this is nothing to do with Sam, but I did those two. We did the 2 10-week courses in 3 hours.
So what I've heard there, and I'm happy to say this, is depending which providers you go through. It's if they stretch out the core. Well, I think not the core hours is the wrong word. I think it's whatever it is. The
contact hours or whatever.
Yeah.
We did it via correspondence.
Yeah. If they stretch out the hours, the funding can increase based on that as well.
So we did it through TAFE, and we rocked up, and I was like, I know this stuff. We've been running businesses for a long time. We understand it. Yep. She's like, yeah, cool. Yeah.
I get you. Yeah.
Let's see it. So
just one other thing too, just only because it's just important, I think. We were talking before about the contractor's license. So getting a contractor's license, you need to find a nominated supervisor.
Yep.
So
and they have to be an employee. Can they be a contractor?
No, they can be a contractor as well. Cool. Yeah, that's fine. Yep. As long as they sign a document to state that, that's no worries at all.
And have their own insurances, which is not really consumer business affairs concern.
No, it's not. But as long as it's effectively you sign that document, then it's up to you to have your insurances and stuff. That's fine. But best way to view it though is that when you get when you find a supervisor, or it could just be you because you run the company and you want to also be the supervisor. You complete control of it,
company,
which makes sense. You just got to remember that the company license or contractor's license, whatever structure it is, that will always piggyback off the supervisor's license conditions.
Yep.
You can't
have a bigger conditional base than the one below.
Spot on. Yep. That's a big problem where guys will go, they say, but I want the company to do this, scope, but then the supervisor's license. So you're going to be really careful about that. The biggest issue I find, just in general for licensing, is vetting supervisors if it's not going to be you. Because people will say they can do it. And they'll show you a card that's expired. You really need to go on the government website and see.
And you can check that with the license number.
Spot on.
From a consumer standpoint, if a consumer wants to go check a builder's license, that's something that they've got complete access to. They type the number in, and it says what they're qualified to do. So if a company is doing work for someone, their construction license number would be different to the supervisor's license number. What should a consumer be looking at? The construction number? Because it has to have covered the one below it.
Spot on.
Cool. All right.
And effectively the contract is with the company. So therefore that's kind of the risk and liabilities. It ultimately is through the company. So we have to through there.
So what are the risks for a company if they're under licensed or unlicensed to do work that they've performed and completed?
Well, there's an obvious insurance risk. So what will happen with the company is that they'll always take out their public liability because just everyone knows to do that just by default. Under terms and conditions, under all these public liability policies, it will state on there, you must hold the appropriate license in your relevant state and jurisdiction. It's not the onus of the insurer to check that. So what will happen is, generally speaking, without being legal advice, is that if you were to do work, let's say, we'll stick to the landscaping side of things. You got a license for paving and retaining walls, but then you ended up doing a carport, do a pergola, right? Because I had a recent example of this. Did a pergola, and that wasn't, and you weren't licensed to do so. Something happened, it collapsed. Then the public liability, that won't pay out on any of that, any risk to injury on site. It just won't. So you'll put a claim in, and they'll accept it. But they'll always
then they'll go check it.
They'll just go check it.
Well, that's an insurance company's job to not pay claims. I've heard that if you're not licensed to that, the client doesn't legally have to pay you for the work.
So this is it's yes and no. This is obviously going down the path of legal advice.
So it's case by case.
Sort of. So what I've kind of what I'm aware of is that, and this is advice that is given out by Fair Trading as well across all states, I think, is that yes, the customer won't need to pay for labour, but they need to pay for materials.
Okay, cool. Because there's no doubt that the materials were supplied. Just
regardless. You don't need a license to supply materials. So,
Tell me about it. Yeah. That's why I went into supply.
Yeah.
No licensing required.
So that's a big thing, and that's where customers will. Obviously, they're frustrated.
Well, if it's got to the point where they're not paying, it's usually because something's gone wrong. For the only way it would be worse than that is if there was someone maliciously like, I'm going to hire a non-qualified person just to get something built.
Which unfortunately,
cheap.
Yeah. Happens a lot.
Well, yeah, if you've got good knowledge of that, which I've just helped highlight for more people, but don't do that to your tradespeople. Okay, so that was the under license thing was something that was in my mind this morning when I was thinking about the podcast. I'm guessing that you're seeing people as much for under licensing as much as unlicensing. That they're trying to get that next thing onto their license.
Spot on. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And it's so the upgrades are a big thing for that. A lot of the time too, the tradies, so the person who holds a license or doesn't realise that the scope of what they're doing really actually needs a builder's license. Just perfect example would just be basic fencing.
Yep. Good neighbour.
Yeah, good neighbour fencing.
Yep,
a lot of guys just think that it's not covered under builder's licensing, and the reality is too is because they don't see their competitor with a BLD license number as well, right? So it's constantly validated in a circle
internally.
Yeah. So a lot of that happens too. I try to tell the guys that look, especially if they've been issued a warning letter from licensing too, which is very common because their compliance part of it is it's pretty robust to that, and it's very easy to find guys without a license.
So they use, I'm assuming, Facebook advertising. Like they'll go find it. Yep, they've done a fence. Yep. What's their builder's license? They don't have it. Here's your warning.
Yep, spot on. Yep, and obviously consumer.
That's simple.
Yeah,
and reporting.
Yeah, consumer complaints.
And competitor reporting.
Yeah, spot on.
I'm assuming there's a bit of that.
Yeah.
So you're obviously South Australian based. This podcast will be watched around the world because it's so popular. Is a South Australian license recognised in other states? Or vice versa?
On the face of it, it is.
Yep.
Definitely. There's a couple of tricks with it though. So when we'll stick with the landscaping side of things. With that, it is a bit tricky because each state has competing versions of their definition of, say, landscape, perfect example.
Yep.
So a lot of other states, eastern states, or in Queensland, all the rest of it, they've got a specific condition of landscaping.
Yep.
But then how does that convert over to South Australia or vice versa? So guys that are based here and it's called mutual recognition, right? So they mutually recognise over to that state for a couple of jobs or whatever it is. It is the discretion of that state-based authority of how they're going to interpret the conditions.
So they would check that?
They'll definitely check.
As in, like, if you're the builder or you're a landscaper, fall in love, move to Queensland, want to start working over there, what's the best course of action to contact their local business?
The only course of action, really, is to speak to the regulator over there. Don't just start. Yeah, don't just start because they're looking for this all the time.
So this is more a case of ask for permission over forgiveness. Whereas I like doing it the other way. This is probably not the kind of situation where you ask for forgiveness.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep, spot on. And so that's the thing. And just one thing I just do want to mention though, because this catches guys out a lot of the time, because the company structure is so popular now too, obviously separating risk and all the rest of it, which we're all in the same game with that. The problem is mutual recognition only covers we'll just call it a transfer of license to another state for a natural person.
Yep.
It doesn't cover entities.
Companies. So an individual's construction license can be transferred
instantly.
Yep. But a company can't.
No.
So that's where I'm guessing your tier 1, tier 2 large commercial landscapers that are moving into other states, they need to reapply for their construction license for the company. I mean, a lot of cases they're registering new companies in that state anyway for even further protection of their companies. So they'd go through the whole process. I'm guessing if they've got a company license in South Australia, they go to open in Western Australia. Yep. When they get there, they're like, well, we've already got a company license over here. This is the kind of structure we're going to follow. They don't have to go reapply. Well, I'm assuming it would be a smoother transition.
Smoother, yeah. Yep. So each state, it is WA, unfortunately, actually, I don't know, to be honest, but just Queensland, for example.
Well, WA is not even Australia anymore. Wax it. So don't worry about
it. But I definitely comment about Queensland. The Queensland one is, there are actually questions in there in the application to say, look, yes, it is a new application. Yep. However, do you hold a current license equivalent in another state? Yep. So that they will make it easier for you to do it, but you just need to know that, yes, it is a new application. And the reason why I say that is because mutual recognition is the perception is it's basically instant to get a license because you get issued like an interim license in that state, Queensland, for example. The company license, because it's a new application, it's not instant. So you are then stuck with that processing time, which could be 2 to 7 weeks. It doesn't matter.
Okay, so 7 weeks would be a long process for any state. Yep. So 2 weeks. Okay. Yeah, so that was going to be one of my questions. Like, how long are you waiting to? Because I'm assuming the department are upgrading people's licenses every day. It's not like you wait till the end of a calendar year and everyone gets upgraded on January 1st. Like, it's a rolling process.
Especially with licensing here, it's very difficult to gauge. A good wait time would be 4 weeks. 3 to 4 weeks to be fair. A bad wait time, it got to 20 weeks. It had nothing to do with South Australia. There was a lot of demand from Interstate coming over here, so it actually blew out the times, which was not usual. So a bad wait time is about 8 to 9 weeks. Okay. But look, to be fair to CBS as well, I should give them a plug for this as well. They're well aware of the wait times, and they're always trying to adjust it because, it affects me. It affects a lot of guys as well, because the amount of applications I put through too. And the last thing I want to be doing to saying to guys is, look, wait time should be about 4 weeks. All of a sudden it jumps to 8. And it's just not, it's not fair.
Well, as much as they're a government department, they're a business as well. And there's, I guess, a level of service there, because it's the desire of the government to have work performed by licensed contractors.
Spot on.
Only. And if they make that process hard or arduous or take too long, people aren't going to do it.
Spot on.
And they're going to break the law as much as they shouldn't. So.
Exactly right.
We talked a little bit about, I guess, things that like fencing that's under a license. Is there anything out there that you're seeing now that you think like should be licensed for that isn't? Like, I think about lawn. I don't think you need to be licensed to lay lawn or plant plants or spread mulch.
No, not that. Just the site prep though.
Yep.
The site prep is.
So that's not licensed, or it is.
It is.
It is, and it should be.
Should be.
It's machinery.
Yeah. Exactly.
Dole before you dig and jazz.
Spot on. Yeah. But the actual laying of artificial lawn and lawn and all the rest of it, not covered under. Yeah, it's a good question.
Because artificial, laying normal lawn's pretty forgiving. You lay artificial lawn incorrectly, that's bad. Like, that's probably harder to fix than a bad paving job sometimes, because it's one single sheet.
Yes, well.
Anything come to jump out for you that you're like, it's been a bee in your bonnet for?
Unfortunately, it doesn't relate to your industry though. Sorry.
That's good. Throw someone else under the bus.
Yeah, sorry. It's actually more so recent. It's because of the home builder grants that have come through, and the surge in demand for renovations, and new builds and all the rest of it, for residential mainly. There's the conditions that are available at the moment are renovations, alterations and renovations. But that's not limited to the class. So that's alterations, renos for residential and commercial. So when you sit that interview, you are getting tested on both of those. But the reality is, a lot of these guys, they're not in the commercial space at all.
So it should be split.
And look, it's something I'm raising. I'm pushing with them as well, because I actually think it would be fairer for the trades, and it would activate more compliance as well for it.
Which is the goal.
Spot on. And reducing failing in the interview as well. Because a lot of these guys, if they don't go through me, which is obviously is what it is, they're not expecting commercial questions when they come in, because they think it's
I was just building houses. That was the same thing. Okay, that's a good point.
So that is one, but unfortunately for your industry, there's not much pops up.
It's pretty well covered now.
Look, the only other thing is the actual condition of landscaping. But that's been going around for years,
because the word is so broad.
And each state has their own interpretation of it as well. So it's a hard one. I honestly don't have a comment on it. I just don't know.
There doesn't always have to be an answer. Is there something that you is there something that you think is odd that does require licensing at the moment? Like, I don't know if this is going to upset D'Artagnan, but it's painting. I've got a friend who's a painter. Does painting, obviously, if you're going to be a painter, you require a license?
Yes.
Is there different levels of that?
No. Look, there's two versions: painting and decorating. That's all there is. Yeah, that's it.
So if you don't have your painting and decorating, you can't refix timbers and plaster. You can only paint.
Yeah, that's it. However, to be fair, for licensing though, they do make the interview process much simpler for the painting guys because they know that it's obviously at the lower end of a construction license. So there is an opportunity of if you apply that you may not need to sit the technical interview for painting as well too. That's one of the only conditions that they will do that. Everything else, technical interview, it's basically guaranteed. But the painting's the only kind of one that varies on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've asked those ones. So I put it out to our trade client base this morning just to get an idea of what was at the front of their mind, and I've got a few questions that have come from that. So you've already explained the structure between so there was company has their construction license, and then the supervisor has their supervisor's license, which is a worker's license. There's nothing else around that. No, that's just the two license categories. So say you were a landscape designer and you were designing people's backyards, and then the client was like, look, I really like working with you. Can you help me find some landscapers to do the work and run the job for me? What would their licensing requirement be if they're not performing any work and they're either not? So there's two sides to this. They're charging the whole job and making a profit and then running the contractor as they become the construction. I think I've answered my own question. Or externally to that, they're watching over the work, making sure it's getting done. But they're not charging the client at all. So the construction is getting charged by the construction company.
Spot on. Yep, really common question in fair trading as well. Really common. Best way I like to explain it is it's all about the flow of money. That's it. Don't confuse it with anything else. As long as if you as the designer gets that money from the customer as per contract, and then you're a subcontracting the work, you then require a company contractor's license.
And the subcontractor only requires a supervisor's license
spot on.
to do work under your...
Oh, well, no, sorry. So if you're subcontracting the work out, that's wrong. Sorry. If you're subcontracting the work out, then that person requires supervisor and contractor's license.
And you need a contractor's license above that.
And that was one thing I should have raised before too, because I was on the tip of my tongue, is that people will confuse, and rightfully so, that a subcontractor is not the same as a contractor for the purposes of licensing. They're identical. There's no difference in it at all. So if you're a subby, you still should be holding your own contractor's license as well.
As an individual or a company. Company contract to company, or company contracts to subcontractor, individual sole trader partnership. So they go the other way. So they go that way. They can still charge the client for their services, but the flow of money for the actual work has to go to the... Sorry, slapping the table. Has to go to the person doing the work.
Spot on. It's like a referral arrangement, right? So that's how we try and word it. If it's a referral arrangement, there's no...
cool. That's good. I think that'll definitely answer the question for the person that was interested. Another question that came up. I'm a landscaper. I've got I've got my license to do retaining walls to 5 meters. I don't even know what the limits are.
Unrestricted.
Stupid retaining walls. Everything else. I'm now interested in becoming a builder or having that ability to build outdoor rooms into pools. What's the process for them to upgrade that license? So they need to go do a building course, or they're kind of doing a lot of that work already.
How much time you got? It's a big answer.
12 minutes.
It's a big answer.
So it's case by case.
Definitely case by case. Best way to view it for everyone is that as soon as you are doing any type of renovation or addition, an extension is the common word, but we define it as addition, right? So as you do any type of renovation or addition that's structural, the key word is structural. Then if it's an upgrade or if it's a new application, doesn't matter. It's the same process. You must, if this is on the proviso that these guys are going to actually upgrade as contractors as well. So not just as workers.
That's this person in question would be,
Yeah, for sure. So if you're going to do an upgrade on that, not only do you need to declare in your work history that you've already done a minimum of those 4 types of jobs before, or else you will not get a technical interview. All right. That's number 1. And then number 2 is the government since 1st of October last year, there was a couple of dates, but we'll just use 1st of October. They've introduced new requirements that if it's a company or sole trader, whatever it is, one of those persons running the business, whatever business it is, must complete an additional 4 units of study within a Cert 4 building package. So it's mandatory. And then also they must supply evidence of the QBE builder's warranty insurance. It's a certificate of eligibility, not actually the insurance policy.
So this person, say they've been running their company for 15 years, they were a landscaper for 5 years prior to that, and that's all they've ever done. how are they supposed? They can't. Do they stop running their business and go work for someone to learn how to build that? Like that's a challenging.
Unfortunately, that's what we're facing right now.
Yep.
So from the start of this year, that's what's happening.
So if they should have done this licensing 2 years ago, they would have been smoother.
Yeah,
he'll love that answer.
And unfortunately, I'm hearing it every day.
Yeah,
It's just a timing thing.
Can they hire a supervisor that's done that work and then upgrade their construction license?
Yeah, spot on. So that's the kind of actually what I'm advising a lot of the guys at the moment is if you got a mate it has a ticket in some type of renovations or additions type of thing, nominate them onto your company license, for example. But the catch is that yes, you can do that, but still, let's call it a company. One director must still satisfy those 4 extra units.
That's fine, and I'm sure that the guys that I'm talking to would happily go do the study, but they can't stop running their business to go build houses for a year underneath someone. So that makes it a lot more practical. Bring in someone, use them genuinely, and then push yourself up. Kind of thing.
And the good thing is too, those 4 units,
because then they'll get experience in building those 4 or 7 or whatever with that guy working.
All relevant. Absolutely. Cool. It's all considered. And those 4 units, you can actually through providers that I use as well. I've got a preferred provider. You can do it all online, 100% online. As well too. So at least you can do it at home. So you just chip away at it.
Well, that's the thing. These guys are already doing 12 hours a day in the daylight.
Exactly.
So I had a question from a plumber I didn't quite understand the question. It might make sense to you. He's like, can you do a license upgrade from Cert 4 plumbing to restricted builder's license?
I get it. That's cool. So you can, but it's not under the plumbing license. That's the difference.
So you have 2 license numbers?
Basically, but what license CBS is what they've been doing for years is trying to do is reduce the cost of contractor licenses. Yes, you will have 2 licenses because under plumbing you got to have your plumbing workers license always.
Which is your supervisor's license, or is it called a plumbing?
Actually called a plumbing workers license. And that's through because of the regulator. They need for signing off on COCs and all the rest of it. So they need to hold that license always, which is entitled to them after the apprenticeship. But then what CBS will do is they say, all right, you want to be a contractor for plumbing, obviously, because you don't use Cert 4 in plumbing. But then you want to do, perfect examples, bathroom renovations for these guys, right? It's really common. So, and that's fine. And they're mostly doing it anyway. So what CBS will do is they'll say, all right, we will allow you to have a builder's license as a contractor for plumbing. So we'll actually take that condition of plumbing contractor from that license over to the building. We recognise it there, so you can effectively contract for plumbing under your builder's license, and then we'll allow you to add on bathroom renovations as long as you sit and pass that technical interview for bathroom renovations.
And have evidence that you've done so, but you have to qualify for the technical interview now, which means you have to have evidence that you've done them.
Cool. Which, look, for a lot of these plumbers, it shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't be a problem.
So, are you busy at the moment? Like, is it a crazy time? And has COVID affected you in one way or the other, or? So,
and look, I'm not whinging. All right, I really don't want to have that kind of perception I'm whinging, because it's good to be busy, especially for this time. When COVID hit properly in March for all of us, my phone stopped ringing for 2 weeks, which like for everyone.
Well, everyone was just calibrating, I think.
Spot on, trying to absorb, figure out what's going on. And then after that, it has literally not stopped. It's been unbelievable. And it's all different types of building industry as well too. So everyone's doing it.
Well, the market's not had that.
No.
And now you're here and they're like, oh, good, here's some money, fix my shit. That's ultimately probably the whole sentence.
And there's not enough workers too. I mean, just as an example too, like I want a guy to do a paving job for me just at home because I just don't have time to even look at it. Put out 3 quotes. I did not hear from all 3.
No, that's right now. I'm not kidding. You give me 20 landscapers right now, I'll give them jobs. Like South Australia is screaming for it, and I'm critical at times about the delivery of government support and the speed at which it's getting delivered. And I talk to people that are part of government departments. They're like, no, they're doing a great job. I'm like, okay, well, none of this work. There's no workers to do this work, but there's you're not. It's I always say it's good to be busy to a point, and I understand exactly what you mean, because once I start letting people down, I feel sick.
Yes.
And I don't like that.
Yep, spot on.
And there's only so much work you can do, especially as a sole trader, well, not a sole trader, but as an individual that's working on their own. So what, just tell people stop calling you for a bit? Like, we'll just put it out there?
That's it, thanks.
All right. If people do want to get in touch with you, your website looked pretty detailed. That's you've got that contact form on your website? Yeah, so contact form, email as well. Yep. Just send an email. Yep. It doesn't have to be formal. It could be anything. Just the key thing for me. Start the conversation. Yep. All I really am interested in initially, because I'm happy to chat after on the phone. Yep. I'm just really interested to know
business structure,
Yep.
and what type of conditions you want to apply for based
Yep.
on your experience, not what you want in the future.
Yep.
Because unfortunately, that's kind of cut off now.
Yep.
So so it's I can mention, of course, what the pathway is after
Yeah.
in the future,
Yep.
but just to get a good summary of that,
Yep.
and then happy to have a chat after
All right.
over the phone.
So that's all I've got. If anyone's got any questions for Sam, this will obviously be up on YouTube and all the audio platforms. You can obviously email him direct and ask him questions, and he'll probably charge you to answer them. Or, nah, he won't. Chuck your questions in the comments underneath the video. Obviously, if you've enjoyed watching this or listening to it, please share it with anyone that you think that might be interested in it. Give it a like and a subscribe if you're looking at it on YouTube. I'm guessing you're not on Instagram and Facebook.
Sorry,
and
mate.
No,
No.
very busy
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
I'm guessing what you do doesn't deliver a lot of beautiful pictures as well.
No,
It'll just
spot
be
on.
pictures of paper on desks.
Yeah, and
Yep.
it's all government paperwork. It's not exciting.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming in. I really hope that that's shone some light. It's definitely helped me understand it, and I'm not inside it. So for the guys that are actually doing this day to day, I reckon that would have cleared up a lot. So thank you very much.
All right, appreciate
And,
it. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, that is that.